Morning. So this is a bit of an impromptu vExpert daily, seeing as Michael Hitchens decided he's not going to do it. So I'll be hosting.
Did he decide or just not pitch?
Politically correct answers.
Moving swiftly on.
Yeah, it's moving swiftly on. So thanks guys for coming on the panel. I think I was quite interested, Tom, when you were talking about you have a plan around swag here, and I actually didn't hear that. So if you did mention it, that might be a good...
Should we intro the panel while we're at it?
Yeah. Ooh, good call. Hey.
Yeah, I've done this before.
There we go. See, maybe you should host.
Start from the end.
Hi, I'm Julian Wood, Julian_Wood on the tweets. I'm a blogger. I'm a customer. The blog's at wooditwork.com. And yeah, it's been a quiet week. Got some good time at the pool. Topped up the tan.
Nice.
Yeah, not at all. Been crazy busy. So
you're looking awfully tan for someone who lives in England with me.
I'm Thomas Bryant. I'm a corporate analyst, I guess, at VMware.
I love that succinct. Mine's going to sound really awful and douchey now. My name is Wright. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Disco Posse. I blog at discoposse.com. I'm the technology evangelist for Turbonomic. And I'll stop there so I just don't sound like I'm laying out a resume.
Brilliant. And I'm Gregg Robertson on Twitter at GreggRobertson5. Literally the 5 is because 4 people had got it before me. I blog from the Sapphire Geek, VCDX 205. So, Tom, your swag plan.
Well, so it's a multi-part plan, right? So the first evening is always the drinking and snacks and everything like that.
Yep.
So I never get an opportunity to really see what's on the floor. So day one, which is typically Monday, I'll go through, take a look at all the different vendors and look for what's interesting to me. Just from a technology perspective, who's out there, what's new, who am I not seeing that was here last year that wasn't here, and try to figure out what do I want to invest more time in, because the floor is really big and I only have so much time between sessions, between speaking slots. So usually what I do is I just go and pick up the different kind of pamphlets to make an idea of who do I want to see, but what kind of swag do they have.
Yeah.
And then usually on the last day, that's the swag day, because everybody wants to get rid of their swag. Nobody wants to take this stuff home.
Yeah.
But then all the good stuff's gone.
Unless you're a XXL shirt and you can make it like a bandit out there.
Or a small.
To be fair, if there's stuff that I really want, I will go and get the really cool swag if I can, on Tuesday. But
so there's a multifaceted, targeted approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good.
Because I want to get the stuff that's important, but the rest of it, if I get an extra large shirt, well, that's just used to clean the car.
So one of the things that I always think is, what do you guys think about the floor this year and how it looks compared to people and familiar faces and new vendors? I kind of felt like this year there's a lot of, obviously, the traditional stuff. A few folks weren't there that I may have expected to see.
Such as?
Well, Splunk was one, and I know that was an interesting shift. Again, a lot of companies sort of choose to maybe opt out 1 year. It's not a long-term thing necessarily. And a few, networking companies, smaller networking companies that weren't even on the back row. Docker was over in the corner, so they were back.
Yeah, that
which
was
is interesting. But it was a fairly flattened layout. I didn't see anybody new that was like, wow, I've never heard of them before. And I also didn't see anybody big that was small. It was sort of level set to last year.
And I think they were saying, to me, they said, the Solutions Exchange is smaller this year. And it seemed pretty big as per usual for me. Obviously I noticed the 2 Nutanix booths, and that's, due to the purchase recently. But, I think it was an interesting one. I think walking around there was, as you're saying, there was a lot of companies. There's a couple that I hadn't heard about, to be honest.
There were more than a couple. I'm still amazed how walking along the side aisles of companies that, just so many companies that you haven't even heard of. It's amazing that is still happening.
And also the fall from grace of some names that had pretty big booths a couple of years ago, and now they're slowly starting to get to the outskirts. And that was also just, I guess, the change in industry, the change of all the sponsors and things like that deciding, well, they're not getting VC money anymore. So they're saying, well, VCs are starting to tighten the belts. I mean, I know for people even talking about swag for like a vExpert wise. Yeah. I mean, the cohesity stuff was amazing for the vExpert swag. But everyone else, I mean, obviously you don't want to be a vExpert just to get free stuff, despite what some people do it for. But yeah, it was interesting. Even that, like they were really tightening the gifts. Whereas a number of years ago, you were going home with like coffee presses and a whole host of different things.
There's a correlation between series, funding series rounds and good vExpert gifts. It's we can definitely see that people have seen the value of it. There's still a strong community bond, and people are digging in still. There's a lot of folks that are coming around here. There's lots of engagement, but definitely the wanting to wow them with the great gift is not as much of a focus anymore. And whether that's just because the benefit hasn't always come back in that marketing spend.
Yeah, I wonder if it's also the numbers. I mean, because obviously I think, we've all been vExperts for a number of years, whereas, the numbers have obviously grown like exponentially.
600 and something, 650 maybe, like it's a...
No, it's over 1,000.
Yeah.
Is it that much higher?
1,500 or something.
It's in the thousands.
Oh, 1,500, I think.
Yeah, it was 1,500, and then there's obviously there was a new people being joined in the last couple of weeks, so
that's a lot of Bluetooth speakers.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean that's worth. I mean I'm sat here with vExpert shirts, and they've had to stop that as well because financially you can't send it to 1,600 people wherever it is. I mean that's a lot of money, and yeah, as you say, is it really bringing back that money? I had one. Fortunately, I had never heard of the company. I have said to them I didn't heard of them of Accent, and they said, oh yeah, they were doing the VCDX prize of like a really nice poker set. I was like, oh wow, that's great. And I said to him, I hadn't heard about this. I have a search on TweetDeck, and there's a lot of guys that have the same thing. So I was like, I would have surely have heard of this. It's a really good gift. Like, oh no, we sent a tweet. I'm like, oh good. That's great, but it was for something that you've obviously invested a good amount of money, because it's a hefty kit. I might have to make a plan on the way home. I mean, it's a couple of kilos, but yeah, it's a really good gift, and they didn't really market it, at least in my opinion. I don't want to get someone in marketing fired because I like the gift. So if that was the same person, great work, but it's just a strange...
I think somebody said that geographically, in terms of the space, it may have been smaller, but then I think the booths were a little bit closer together, somebody said. I don't know if that was to create the impression of more people being there, but also because we were in Vegas and then our casino's laid out, it wasn't in any sort of grid pattern. You went down a corridor and you had to stop and turn left and everything, and that people can't just use it as a rat run, so that definitely gets people to stop and do things. I mean, it's a crazy busy place. Everyone's trying to flog their wares. Personally, I didn't spend as much time in the Solutions Exchange this year as I had done before, but that was just purely I didn't have a need to look out for new companies for work I'm doing. But still, I mean, it's still huge, and it's crazy busy.
And maybe that's the time to talk about the ever classic. Every year, somebody says, has VMworld jumped the shark? And great folks in our community, because I'm on the other side of it. I've got my view on it that is very much counter to that. But what is your thought?
Is this VMware or
VMworld? VMworld, sorry.
As I say, it's
no pressure. Yeah, maybe we can edit this part out. I'm just kidding.
No, it's not like there's somebody from VMware up here or anything.
And you know we're streaming this live. But I think it's an interesting one because it's a jump the shark, and also I've heard a few people say, oh well, with the acquisitions now, oh well, next year there's not going to be no VMworld. And you're like, well, I can understand, like EMC World's probably going to be rebranded. That makes sense. But VMworld, Dell's clever, much more clever than that to rebrand it. The way at the moment is they want to keep VMware pretty much the way it is. I mean, why would you change it when, at the moment, their competitors are also linked into the company? If you go and change the name to Dell World, are you going to upset, their whole idea is to try and be agnostic. So,
I mean, I've got a number of sort of thoughts on that, and I think part of the issue is that we have a growing, loving, strong vExpert community that has been doing this for a number of years, and of course you're going to get jaded, of course you're going to get bored. the solution exchange looks similar every year. The hang space looks similar every year, and there's definitely that sort of been there, done that kind of thing. But there's a huge amount of new people coming along. I made a point yesterday of walking around the lunch tables and just plonking myself down and chatting to people. And there was a lady who works she runs some test workstations, and she's got 1,500 workstations that she manages, all running on VMware Workstation. And she's looking to move that to vSphere. And this is the first VMworld she's come to, and she's learning that kind of stuff because she's heard about VRA, and that's what she's going to do. There's a guy on the bus coming back from last night. He's a Cisco guy. They're implementing NSX. This is his first VMworld. He went to Cisco Live. He went to VMworld. He said, I'm absolutely blown away. The huge ecosystem, the things I'm learning, the NSX sessions have been absolutely amazing. So it's very easy for us to sit here and say it's jumped the shark, but there's so many new people coming in and doing new things. VMware itself is by nature moving into a very much managing and cuddling traditional VMs. I'm avoiding the word legacy, but it is sort of, traditional VMs aren't legacy, but they're the future legacy. Everything, those kind of workloads, the whole cloud native space is going mad. VMware is scrambling to do that. The whole cloud space, I think VMware is a bit lost. They're gonna look after your traditional VMs very well.
Thomas wants to leave the stage right now.
I'm happy. I mean,
I still love you.
I know.
Mostly.
So,
It's not unlike if somebody went to university and they complete their PhD and then they say, you know what, high school is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Because we've grown through it, there's always a freshman class, there's always a new batch.
There's always a sense of, VMware's been doing this for 15 years. Of course it's going to become mainstream. Of course it's going to be the thing that everybody does. But, there's new stuff happening.
There's an ebb and flow to it, too. I mean, this is my 10th VMworld US, and people come and go. Organizations, vendors come and go. I mean, there's a core group of us that have been here, and yes, the jaded part is absolutely spot on. I mean, there are times where I think to myself, do I really want to go to VMworld? Is there going to be something new for me? Am I going to enjoy it? And even without the sessions, obviously the networking, that alone is worth it, to be able to connect with the community and everybody else and see what everyone else is doing outside of the technology. And I see the technology is just changing and it's pivoting, and people are looking at that and saying, oh yeah, VMs are passé, there's containers, there's cloud, there's networking, there's storage, there's all these other things, and there's other conferences for that. So VMworld itself is evolving into something new and different, and people, they like to grab on sometimes to the past and say, it's not what it used to be, so I don't like it as much.
It's still real to me, damn it.
It's also an interesting one, because I've heard a few people that do that, we've all been in the industry quite a bit, all this kind of stuff. As you're saying, some people are only learning about VMware and virtualization. I certainly wouldn't want to be going from Workstation all the way to VRA. Good luck to that lady.
It's a long haul.
I may have mentioned that.
That's a significant step forward. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot. I mean, there's a few guys I spoke to who were VCDXs or VCX Caliber and things like that. And they were saying, oh, well, that I went to a deep dive. And I was like, it wasn't a deep dive. I was like, well, the thing is, you've got to remember, that's possibly true, but what you've got to remember is there's also a deep dive for somebody who's maybe only been doing it for a year. That is a deep dive. For us, a deep dive a number of years ago really was. You walk in there and, there's the big names who do like the crazy deep dives on HA and DRS and everything else. Wow, that's amazing. But after you kind of know that, maybe you've already read the blogs about it because you've got to keep abreast of it. Somebody might not know that. They walk in and like, wow, that is actually a lot of significant stuff happening. I didn't know I could do that. And that's what you've got to remember. They've also got to meet the general knowledge of the industry. So just because there's people that, have been doing it for the last decade and that's your job, and you've probably been a consultant maybe for that, so you've really lived and breathed it for the last decade. There's also people who, have only maybe, someone said to them, oh, by the way, the poor lady, I keep referencing her, for the workstations. If that's the case, then, for her, a deep dive would be crazy. She'd go into like a VRA deep dive and then possibly be questioning why they're going VRA. So
that's when you got to step out a little bit too. And I mean, I love Thursday for that sort of thing, because a lot of the repeat sessions, which are the best sessions, generally repeated on the last day, the attendance may be really good, but I've been in sessions where there's 3 or 4 people, and you get one-on-one time essentially with whoever is doing the presentation, and you can connect with them. It becomes more Q&A. You can get as deep as you want, and more importantly, people just need to. It's tough. I mean, if you're an introvert, I'm kind of an introvert, to go up, but introduce yourself to the speakers. Say, hey, I'd love to learn more, and I've never met anybody at VMware or at any of the partners that are doing presentations that are like, no, we can't do that. It's, let's connect after the show. Let's go deep as you want to go, because we're all here for each other, and we all want to learn. So.
I'd just like to also take it back, because my last comments were a bit sort of on some of the negative thoughts on cloud and announcements.
We're used to that from you, Julian.
Yeah. I can be smiley. I'm not a grumpy bastard, I don't think. I definitely think the keynotes had a bit of a wow factor fail. But it's not a technology fail. I think it's just a bit on the marketing side. Some of the stuff because I've been blogging this week and writing some stuff down. There's been a massive focus in VMware recently, at least over the past year, with a sort of realization that the VMware product suite is really good, but some of the integrations aren't great, some of it's complicated, some of it's difficult to set up. We're talking about VRA. To actually set up an SDDC suite by yourself takes a heck of a lot of time, and it's a very manual process. So there's been a huge amount of work that VMware's been doing to integrate that. The Cloud Foundation announcement is very much part of that. The VMware validated designs, shout out to Forbes Guthrie for putting those together, and that is fully scripted in Power CLI. So the VMware validated designs is this how you build a massive data center. Now the pressure's on. Ray O'Farrell's CTO is looking at us now.
Everything's very good.
The VMware validated designs, fully scripted, means you can set up the perfect ideal VMware solution all in script, which is absolutely amazing. I went to a vSAN session yesterday, which had very little to do with vSAN, but the vSAN team is kicking butt, basically. They are forcing other divisions within vSphere to recognize that their bits of the installation are complicated. The vCenter team are doing a great amount of stuff of waking up to realize that vCenter itself needs to be a bit streamlined. And so in a way it's a bit of back to basics, going, if we want to make a cloud, we want to make it easy to operate, we want to make it easy to install for our customers. That's what we need to focus on at the moment. And I was a bit disappointed that in the announcements, that wasn't highlighted. It took me personally, and maybe because I'm a bit dumb, a while to work out the whole Cloud Foundation thing. But then you pick all these other pieces together. If they'd gone up into the announcement going, our focus is to make private cloud as simple as it is to install for you. You then have the flexibility to move to any of these public clouds. You can get your own private cloud up and running in half an hour. All the techies in the audience would be go, that speaks to me.
That's right. Yeah, I think the tagline, we're going to make private clouds easy, and it's like an inner thing of me that was like a little saddened by hearing that, because I know we have to lay that out. I mean, I report into a marketing team, right? I have to do some stuff like that. Because I looked and first thing I thought was that's cute, because there's like 15 other companies that have said that, and some have come and some have gone, and we've been doing this for 5+ years. But the reality is, it does take that long. At 5 years old, so we're struggling with private cloud for 5 years. At 5 years old of age of virtualization, we were at vSphere 2.5, and people were like, I don't know if it's quite ready for production or if I trust it yet. 8 years, 9 years in, we fully trusted it. So I think we're at this neat inflection point where all those works are aligning, and that's it's the second year in a row that we've seen announcements about future announcements, and it's okay. It's a little tough as an organization to do a big show to say that something big's coming, but they have to do that, and they've managed to do that where they started to align the business units and get
that's sort of what my long-winded point was, that they don't necessarily have to come out with these big groundbreaking announcements, but talking to the techies to say we're going to make your life simple is what people really appreciate. And some of the vSAN session, there was a storage futures session, and it's mind-blowing the kind of clever stuff they're baking into vSAN. Have a look at portable snapshots, have a look at exoclones. These are just products, components that VMware is working on. That is seriously clever stuff. I just hope that all this technology that they're writing is not going to be cool tech that just misses the beat because people are moving to other kind of clouds and refactoring and moving all that kind of things. I hope not, because VMware has awesomely clever developers, awesomely clever people. They've built this amazing thing. They just need to keep at it and try and keep the excitement going.
It is the culture of experimentation is alive, which is nice to see. You know, R&D is coming to the fore, and we're as vExperts, we're lucky. We get to participate in it and see it early. So it's also, that's why we get a little bit jaded, because we see the stuff really early on, and then you come to the event and you're like, where is it? You know, where is this next thing?
Or, you know, Vic is moving from private beta to public beta, and you see, you know, there's a bit of a slight sort of disappointment, like, we want stuff out, you know, we want all the new stuff today.
Yeah, it is, and that's the thing. You know, you guys are, you know, that's the thing. There's a lot of stuff where we're all part of different private betas. We knew about different things. We knew where it's going. So you come here and they're like, you know, yeah, here's Vic. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know that, but obviously there's people in the crowd that's brand new. I mean, that is really amazing stuff. I mean, the whole premise behind Vic, and like, you know, all of us pretty much started, you know, server admins and became, you know, someone said, oh, well, learn this VMware thing, and I thought, at least for me, I didn't expect it to blow up as much as it was, you know, thanks to that manager who thought he was giving me a dud job. So he's like, you know, look after VMware, and then, you know, I went and ran with it, and it really worked out. But then, you know, we've gone from server admins to VMware admins to now VMware admins who also look after networking and storage and like the whole ecosystem, and that's almost now, you know, people realize, oh no, it's going that one step further now. Now we're starting to bring in containers and everything else, and with Vic and everything else coming in there, you're reining it in. You know, it was always the developers going in there asking for a very large Linux VM. I always love walking into places, and they're like, no, you know, you ask them, are you guys doing any kind of containerizing? They're like, no, we're not doing containers, we're not doing anything like that. I'm like, have any of you guys been asking for like really large Linux VMs? They have. Oh yeah, maybe we are doing it. And that's the thing, and that's crazy, because there's loads of companies that are doing loads of development, loads of stuff in there, and all that code it just isn't being managed. No one's really sure of it, and that's where I don't know. Maybe it was for me, is that, you know, that realization that that's what they're really bringing in. They're really bringing it in now, that you can do it, and all the reporting and everything else is now being built containerized. You know, containers literally on the strength of the VMware infrastructure.
Well, I mean, if you remember early in virtualization days, right, with developers, it was they had the desktops under their desk, right? They would hoard desktops. And then we tried to get that back in and do virtual machines with them and give them what they need. It's kind of the same round two with desktops under the desks again, but now it's doing containers and it's become unmanaged. How do we get visibility and insight into that again?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of things where, you know, you got to make sure that, you know, code isn't being lost, or, you know, how are they doing it? How are you making sure? Are people pushing it to a repository? And that's the thing, is that a lot of the stuff that developers work on. I mean, I did a very large project for a bank, and they were doing their whole mobile app where everybody was, you know, doing their banking. Most people, I know they say like the most busy branch office for a big bank in Barclays is like Paddington Station at 7 a.m. in the morning, because literally everybody is checking their bank balance while on this specific train into London. And that's the thing, is that's that importance of it now. And so that all that development is then being put onto a coder who's doing something on Linux, but that code is really important, because, you know, you need to control it, you need to operize it, or else that could get lost, and then they could have major outages. And like, you know, if someone can't look at their banking details in the morning, that's horrendous. You know, the bank I was helping by doing VRA stuff, you know, they had a lot of issues where they were saying, you know, that the app was going down and it was all over the papers, and they were losing people to competitors. So that's the thing. Trying to bring that in is really important now.
Maybe I'll ask the question that's tricky to ask when we're obviously we're at VMworld, we're talking about VMware. But as technologists, we also know there's other things that are happening. What's your advice on the thing that a VMware admin, technologist, architect should look at outside the VMware ecosystem to understand why the VMware ecosystem is starting to change? Like, if you were to look outside and say, not just reactively, we're changing VMware platforms to respond to the stuff, but the industry is moving. If you were to say, what's the technology that everyone should go out and learn a bit about?
AWS and Docker, to keep it simple.
I would say automation in general and containers. I'm not sold 100%, a little bit more worded, on Docker, but just containers. I mean, VMware was in this same spot 10, 15 years ago of, is it going to be adopted? Containers will be adopted. It's coming. That's a foregone conclusion, whether it's Docker or CoreOS or whatever. Start learning about that now.
Yeah.
Embrace the change, because you don't want to fight it. IT has this horrible need to hold on to things and fight change. We need to be agents of change. So adopt containers, understand it, get ahead of the curve, just like you did with VMware and virtualization 10 years, 15 years ago, 2 years ago, and embrace automation. It's coming. You need to get comfortable with it, because our roles as admins are changing, and you don't want to be the firefighter anymore. You don't want to be the guy that is always clicking and hunting and pecking and doing that. So understanding automation and the value it can bring to an organization, and again, be the agent of change to introduce that in phases. Don't just go full bore, but understanding it, knowing what it can do, what value it can bring to an organization. I'm a big fan of automation as well.
Gregg, as a recent VCDX, obviously you're deep in the ecosystem and you lived a lot in that architectural, the deep designs. If you were to then look out, what would you add to your VCDX design to answer some business needs?
It's interesting because that discussion was, I did a Geek Whisperers podcast, and it was the same idea. They were talking about elite certifications, and is it worth people's while to go down that deep, and and things like that. And I think, it's a funny session that, you still need to understand the infrastructure, you still need to be able to do it, but it was also a little bit of a heartbreaking thing when, everyone takes vSphere for granted now. And that's a really great thing for VMware, that everyone just assumes it's there. But that also then means that people cut corners, people are starting to forget, the nuances of it. The amount of features now just in the vSphere piece is insane. And that's the thing also, is continue learning that. But I think, to answer your question, I think, a lot of it's going in now. I mean, I do a lot of VRA stuff. I seem to be a stickler for pain, so I'm defending VCDX CMA in October, and that's the idea. That going into the VRA pieces, now they're starting to do, going a lot of new endpoints. So not even just, a lot of the VRA stuff is now also bringing in containerizing, all the container pieces and everything else like that. But it's also now doing endpoints into a whole bunch of different things. It's going into Azure, it's going into AWS, and all of that's been worked on as well. And that they realize that as well. They realize, okay, let's make VRA the mechanism to be able to provision to that. You can do that. You can still use VRA for containers and everything else. And that's the whole idea, is that rather than saying, no, you have to provision to vSphere, obviously, everyone wants vCloud to come back. I can't comment on if that's going to happen or not. But it's that's the kind of thing where it's a really important thing.
We're not the center of the universe. I mean, AWS is here to stay, and there's always going to be other platforms. We have to recognize, or VMware has to recognize, I should say.
Yeah.
That's VMware, not me. VMware has to recognize that it's not the center of the universe, and I think that's what you're seeing with VRA, is that it's the extensibility. And with any product, it's great that you can live in your own little bubble, but if you really want mass adoption, you have to be extensible, you have to be able to interoperate and provide some common services, and what you want is that control plane. You want to be that control plane for all of it.
I agree, because that was the thing. I mean, on that, they were saying, okay, you're doing your VCDX, what are you going to do next? And I said to them, I'm a stickler for pain. I've submitted again. But I said, after that, I'm probably going to look at, I really want to learn more about AWS, because, as you say, Amazon's not going to go away. I want to learn more about AWS. I want to learn more about Azure and become pretty much more like a well-rounded cloud architect. That's important now, because also, I don't want to break people's hearts on it, but knowing just VMware is now not enough for some places. It's great and it, but it's just, you go into a certain level now and you say, oh, well, yeah, I'm a, VCDX, DCV or whatever. Okay, that, there's a whole other story that people think of vExperts more, people recognize, oh, you're VCDX. Oh, you're a vExpert. Amazing. It is amazing, but you don't understand it, and that's a whole other discussion. But that's the thing, is that people just take it for granted now that that's the skill sets everybody has. Oh yeah, my guys have been doing VMware for the last decade. You're nothing special with that, and that's, as I say, a double-edged sword.
I've got sort of 4, but I know, Julian, you wanted to jump in on something.
Well, the VMware is reiterating that, because last year the whole theme of the conference was ready for any, and it had, I keep forgetting it, it was any device, anywhere, one cloud.
Right.
And even in the keynote last year, I remember sitting at the blogger table like, why would you ever say one cloud? And what's this whole conference about? Any device, anywhere, any cloud.
Right.
So even, in 1 year, that public realization that we're in an any cloud world.
And I think that comes to the abstraction. So if I were to lay my technologies that people should go, definitely, I'm with you guys. AWS, I just got AWS certified. And why? Because you need to know why it matters and why it's not appropriate. It's as important to know not as yes. You have to understand where it would fit and where it won't fit. Containers, as a general spec, Docker is obviously the easiest one to latch onto. Orchestration environments, including Mesosphere and Kubernetes, definitely simple, fairly simple to start with, in the way that vCloud was fairly simple to start with. It's not absolutely dead easy to set up. It's dead easy to set up wrong, but at least understand the flow, why it works, what it solves, and then to go from there. And then, of course, wrap it back into this multi-cloud, any cloud. That's the realization. We have to stop with this hubris that any single vendor is going to own the whole thing. Even AWS themselves are wrapped in hubris of we don't need to worry about your on-premises environment because you're all going to come to us. And there's this joke on Twitter today, Andy Mann, who's a great guy, and he said something about somebody is trashing, legacy vendors are on the verge of death, says VC-funded, new age vendor. Of course, and my response is, along with, private cloud is dead, says technology evangelist of public cloud. Yeah. We've got to be careful who we're listening to, and that's what's good as a vExpert community. We're all starting to dabble in other areas. So anybody that's watching, look and watch what all of us are doing as we sort of try to lean forward into what's coming. And even VMware, we saw it in the keynotes, whether they were specific on names, but Julian, you nailed it. It was, we are the one cloud that you're going to need. Now we're like, hey, look, okay, those guys are pretty good, but use us to broker it.
Yeah. And one other thing that wraps us all around is the DevOps movement. The cliche meme of software is eating the world, but that whole DevOps movement is cloud-enabled it. Developers can create stuff, they can operationalize it so quickly, the tools, the value of open source even into the enterprise, the way that people can write super clever, massively scaled applications across multiple clouds is very much part of the DevOps movement. And so if you're an IT practitioner, particularly on the infrastructure side, containers, as we mentioned, AWS is a technology that you can learn, but understanding it from a developer's point of view and what DevOps means will be hugely helpful to your business.
We are about to screw up containers and cloud just as badly as we did with virtualization. We all did P2Vs of massive servers. And we thought that was the first way to make our foray into it. We are about to spend too much on AWS in the first year and and realize, okay, we need to rethink how we're doing this. So first is the what, and then we work backwards and say, understand the why, and then the how.
But I just containerized my 4 terabyte Oracle database. It's running in AWS. Is there something wrong with that? I'm containers in the cloud.
Yeah, I don't know. It's yeah.
I want to go back to the one cloud thing, though. I think that was, again, a case of marketing to me. I mean, I'm a little bit biased, obviously, but when I saw one cloud, I thought, one cloud? No, VMware can't own the one cloud. It's how do I abstract all of the clouds to make it appear as one cloud? And I think the messaging this year is a lot better because it's talking about any cloud and being the control plane for all of that. But how do I orchestrate, administer all of that and treat it as a single cohesive cloud? And it is one cloud, but how that was delivered came across.
Yeah, I think
fairly
it's just
poorly, I guess,
a choice of words.
Semantics.
If you've got three different things, device, anywhere, you can't have any one. That just highlights the spotlight on the why is that only one? So it's good to see that. We're back to three Any's.
All right. Well, I mean, it's as I say. I mean, they've got the plans, as you say, bringing it in, trying to rein in the cloud, but not. You don't want people going out, obviously buying AWS with their corporate credit card. And that's, as I say, linking back to Vic and everything else, that's a great idea, is that they're now saying, utilize as, you can still do all of that, you can still do everything you were doing before. We can, run on the shoulders of all these people who have great things. It allows you to do it. We don't want to limit people's work, and the buzzword is obviously DevOps at the moment. Everybody must be doing DevOps, and I'm doing DevOps. Are you doing DevOps? I'm doing Agile. Are you doing Agile? And there's nothing wrong with all of that, but people need to also not get wrapped up in all of that. You can do all these things. You can do a bit. You can have stuff where some of it's private cloud, some of it's public cloud, some of it's cloud bursting. How are you doing it? Where are you provisioning it? Is putting things in Docker going to make it simpler? You guys are talking about Kubernetes. That's something. One of the things I also need to pick up and learn is that these kinds of things, it is changing, and if you don't accept it and start learning it, you might look up one day and realize, oh well, I'm that server admin who's now looking after a mainframe. Although actually, people who look after mainframes are making a fortune now. But that's the thing. You've got to be careful before you realize, actually, I'm a number of years behind the curve. I'm going to have to learn all of this stuff really quickly now.
I mean, again, I go back to how I got into virtualization. This was back in 2003. It was new, it was cool, it was experimental, and something I could get into and learn about and embrace it.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to get comfortable, and when you get comfortable, you get complacent.
Yep.
And you have to be uncomfortable, you have to look for that change, and that's what Docker and DevOps and containers and everything it's that next evolution. So yes, VMware is great and it will stay, but be uncomfortable. You have
definitely.
to go for that.
I mean, one of the vBrownbag, one of the vBrownbag team, Alistair, he did a presentation this week where he was talking about blowing up his career. He was saying, he was an instructor. It was really, that's where he was getting all of his business from. Shout out to Alistair. And it's a good point. He was doing a lot of instructor stuff, and with computer-based training coming in, and people training themselves, or on-demand training, etc., like that. It meant that the amount of work that was coming through to him wasn't there. So he said, he had to blow up his career. And obviously, for people that have, you get quite settled in what you're doing. You're like, I'm really good at VMware stuff now, and I can do virtual infrastructure. Like, let me sit back for a bit. And then, if all these people are coming in now, going, oh well, we really want Kubernetes now. I can do that, of course. So, that's the thing. Sometimes you have to look and you think, wow, actually what I'm doing is starting to become maybe a bit legacy now. Maybe I have to learn it, or it's evolving, and now what I was doing before isn't there. Especially as I'm saying, you're moving despite them fighting it, storage and networking and everything is moving in. Like you just go out and you tell the networking guy, just give me a layer 2 network, and thanks for your time. So that's the thing.
But the cool thing is of all of that, and it is intimidating, but we are still, and we are at an amazing time in IT. Cloud has just created this massive amounts of innovation that companies can form, ideas can be curated, stuff can run anywhere. And from an infrastructure point of view and a coding point of view, it can be intimidating, but literally the possibilities are endless. And I'm personally, I'm excited to be in IT because there's so many different paths you can take and different things you can do, and never fear you're going down the wrong path, because it's always stuff you're going to learn, and if you go down the wrong path, you're going to learn what not to do rather than what to do. So, go for it. Sign up for a course. Look at a YouTube video. Just pick your fancy.
It's definitely the culture of experimentation is the foundation of a lot of DevOps, and in blowing up your career. a culture of experimentation with everything you do in business and technology, in yourself and personally. We have to embrace that, and because we have to do it wrong before we learn it's right. You have to turn that screw until it strips before you realize that was as tight as it could go. We have to kind of push ourselves to that next point, and that's it. Experiment, fail, and enjoy it. Yeah. Learn from it. It's not failure if you learn. And definitely we're, as a company, VMware is doing it. As an industry, we're all doing it. So it's good it's fun to be a part of it. I'm excited.
All right, well, I think we've got about a minute left, to be honest. So final thoughts from you guys. I mean, obviously, you were saying, are you going to be back next year? And also, what are you hoping? You were saying that it was everywhere, any, and then one, and that's changed. Now, where are you hoping, next year's keynote's going to be about?
1 minute.
You got 20 seconds. Go.
I think it's tough for me. I have to fund my own way to come over here. It's an expense. I've got to take a week off work. So, I've got to decide personally whether it's still worth it. I've loved being here. So, at the moment I'm thinking I will. Although there may be other conferences to go to broaden my horizons. From a VMworld standpoint, I think they need to they need to make cloud exciting from their point of view. Otherwise, people are going to follow the buzz, and that buzz is possibly elsewhere.
I'm definitely going to be here. Knock on wood, Michael, please.
Let me not lose my job. Thank you.
I love you. No comment on what will be here next year?
That's fine. I can understand why.
No, but I mean, my hope outside, if I take off my VMware hat, I hope it continues to be the evolution of embracing hybrid cloud, and whatever that term means, embracing more DevOps, more pipeline sort of things, containers, and starting to bring it into that single control plane kind of stuff, like what we saw with Cloud Foundation.
Cool.
I'll always be back. This is my family. This is like going to a family reunion. It's a big thing. And I also, in order to bridge the gap to what's next generation, you have to always be able to be amongst every crowd.
Yeah.
I go to the OpenStack Summit. Going to be here for AWS reInvent. I'm here for NetApp Insight. I'm here for all these different. It's an absolute value that you sit amongst it all. Take it in, listen to the community. And as vendors, we also have a responsibility to listen to the community, because we hear the response when we talk about these keynotes. We've got to listen. So be here to listen and share and enjoy.
Yeah, I think, I definitely think I'll still be coming. As you say, work well in and everything else. But I mean, I had to take annual leave to come here. Obviously, thanks to the vBrownbag sponsors, I'm part of the crew, so the sponsors helped bring me here, and that's always greatly appreciated. We're always looking for sponsors for that. But fly me over, but sponsors for the vBrownbag in general. But yeah, I think I'll definitely always come back. I hope, as you're saying, we start doing more cloud. They understand that there's enough for everybody, and let's work with everybody, because people are going to have to talk to AWS. You're going to have to talk to Azure. So instead of trying to, see no evil, just let's all discuss, and hopefully next year, they'll come up there, and maybe they will. Maybe they'll have they'll have Michael Dell speaking on stage beside Pat, and someone from AWS, and they're all working together. We're all bringing you this ecosystem. So yeah, thanks for coming on the panel, guys. It was, as I say, a bit impromptu. So yeah, thanks for it, and yeah, keep watching the stream of vBrownbag.